Here are three early bets for college football week 4. First up, Georgia Tech versus Louisville. I like the Cardinals at -10. You know, Georgia Tech's run defense last season was terrible. They were 122nd in EPA per rush allowed. They allowed 5.4 yards per carry. And they didn't really increase their size over the offseason. They're also switching to a new defensive scheme under a new defensive coordinator. So they haven't really seen a rushing attack like Louisville is going to bring them. They have 4 different running backs. They're all averaging over 5.5 yards per carry. So Louisville should be able to have success on the ground. But the key to this game is going to be Tyler Shough at quarterback. He's dealt with injuries his entire career, but so far he's been really good for Louisville. 86.9 PFF passing grade, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And Georgia Tech, remember, they've played Florida State, Georgia State, and VMI so far, and they are 117th in passing success rate allowed. So if Show's able to throw the ball, he's got a really good crop of receivers to throw to. Louisville should have a lot of success on offense here. And finally, this is Georgia Tech's 5th straight game while Louisville is coming off of a bye. So I like the value on the Cardinals here at home at -10. Next up, Toledo's going to beat Western Kentucky, and here's why. Toledo lost a ton on the offensive side of the ball. Tucker Gleason's now the quarterback after backing up Daquan Finn last season, but he's settled into the starting quarterback role very, very nicely. So far, averaging 8.7 yards per attempt, and he's got a really good crop of receivers to throw to. You know, Toledo only returned 4 starters on the offensive side of the ball, while 3 of them were receivers, and they were really, really good last season. So they'll be facing a Western Kentucky secondary that, quite frankly, has been awful this season. They got lit up in the opener against Alabama, but last week against Middle Tennessee, I mean, they allowed the Blue Raiders to throw for over 450 yards and almost 15 yards per attempt. So now they're 132nd in EPA per pass allowed. So Toledo should have their way throwing the ball all over this Western Kentucky secondary. There's also a question who's going to start at quarterback for Western Kentucky. TJ Finley exited their last game against Middle Tennessee with a leg injury. Caden Veldkamp came in and was very good, throwing for 5 touchdown passes and almost 400 yards, but that was against a really bad secondary. So I'm a little worried here for Western Kentucky if they don't have their starting quarterback, because their air raid is so dependent on having their best quarterback available, because they really can't run the ball. They're only averaging 3.1 yards per carry this season. So I like the value on Toledo here at -1. Next up, Baylor should be favored over Colorado. You know, it's the same story for Colorado week after week. Yes, they played a terrible Colorado State defense and they looked pretty competent. But Shedeur Sanders is constantly under pressure. So far this season, on 35% of his dropbacks, he's been pressured. That's not a lot different than what it was last season. And Colorado cannot run the ball to save their lives. So far, they just have 170 rushing yards through 3 games. That's not going to get it done. And now they're going to be facing a Baylor defense that's top 50 in terms of a pass rushing grade. That's 4th in the country in rushing success rate allowed and 3rd in the country in EPA per pass allowed. So if they can't run the ball, all the pressure is going to be on Sanders, and he's also going to be under pressure himself. So it's not a great matchup here for the Colorado offense. On the flip side, Sawyer Robertson looked pretty good against Air Force. It's up in the air whether it'll be him or Daquan Finn starting in this game. But Robertson had an 86.9 PFF passing grade against Air Force, and he actually started one game last season going 17 of 19 for 215 yards with a 91.9 PFF passing grade. So I don't think he's the significant downgrade to Daquan Finn. In fact, I think they're probably more even quarterbacks than most people think. The other aspect is Colorado can't stop the run. They're 90th in the country in EPA per rush allowed. So if Baylor's able to run the ball and take the pressure off of Robertson, they're going to have a lot of success offensively in this game. So I like the value on the Bears at +1.5.